Everyone, my name is Ben. I'm Nadim Fard. I'm a second year law student at Osgoode Law School. And this is I believe, the third installment of one of our newest initiatives called Mediator Spotlight, where we hope to, through chatting with practicing mediators, to gain some insight into their work, and which we're hoping could be of some benefit to our future students and mediators. So I really hope that you enjoy my talk with Dorna Zaboli. And yeah, so first of all, thank you so much, Dorna, for accepting our invitation. This is a great initiative. We're hoping to educate future mediators through having these conversations with people like you. So it's truly a privilege to have you on. I'm just going to ask you to maybe give us a brief intro about yourself and your work. And yeah.
Sure. So I am Dorna Zaboli. I am the founder and principal of WorkWell Solutions, which is a conflict resolution consulting firm with a mission to help foster more collaborative, productive, and peaceful workplaces. In terms of my background, my educational background, I earned my law degrees from McGill University, and my undergraduate studies were in international relations from York University. And I'm a lawyer, a mediator, and a conflict resolution consultant. And I'm so excited to be here because I know what it feels like to want to pursue a career in mediation, but not knowing where to start and how to get started. So happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about your work? I know that you started your own practice not so long ago, I think 2 months now. And I just want to know what areas you cover, what are the kind of clients that you work with? And yes, please go ahead.
Of course. So, my practice at WorkWell Solutions is based on workplace mediation as well as training and workshops in the ADR space for organizations. So, for workplace mediation, the issues that I mediate span a variety of topics, but most notably workplace bullying, conflict between employees, managers, executives. So this could be relationship breakdowns within teams, communication breakdowns, as well as poor employee performance reviews. Um, so that is the domain that I primarily mediate in. And then I also provide training and workshops for organizations. And I deliver and create these customized interactive conflict resolution and communication workshops for business leaders, HR professionals, and employees alike. And many of my clients are organizations that operate in industries that are extremely fast paced, high pressure, and often breed as a consequence conflict and high tensions within the workforce and within the employee teams that they operate in. So, for example, some of the workshops that I offer are communication fundamentals, best practices for preventing and solving conflict, the escalation fundamentals, managing emotionally charged conflict within teams, as well as mediation fundamentals, so conflict resolution skills for leaders and HR professionals.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I was going to say, with your permission, we will provide the link to your website for students who can just go on your website and learn more, at least more details about your
Absolutely.
work, if that's okay.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right, thank you. Would you mind telling us in which point in your education you realized this is something that you want to pursue, if it happened then? And if yes, were there anything that McGill taught you that you specifically find it useful in your current practice?
Of course. So actually, my interest in mediation started in my undergraduate studies.
Oh, wow.
As an international relations major, we were constantly looking at conflicts between states. And, in this time and place. And I was really always curious about the historical context. And when I went into law school, I took employment law and I started learning about conflicts between employers, employees, and that really got me kind of interested in the way in which conflict is dealt with, not only in lawsuit context, but in the interpersonal, everyday context of the workplace. And that kind of started getting my juices flowing throughout articling. I had the opportunity to participate in a few mediations, and that kind of how it started, and kind of set me on my path to where I am now.
So you mentioned that's great. Wow. And you mentioned that you participate in some mediations. Was that through law school or was it through your undergrad? And if you have anything specific about those experiences for students, because this is probably our audience will be mostly students who are going to be a part of our Osgoode Mediation Clinic. So if there's anything from those mediations that you did that you remember that was specifically useful and something that you kind of took away with you and now applying it in your practice.
Of course. So, first things first, I think as students who are interested in mediation, it's really important to observe how seasoned mediators do it. All mediators have different styles, and there's something you can learn from every mediator you cross their paths with. And so, one of the major things that I learned and that I apply in my mediation practice is you need to be flexible. Though each conflict is different, each mediation is different, each party's needs are different. And because the outcome of mediations are oftentimes so up in the air, you need to be able to constantly be flexible and constantly think of creative and strategic ways to hopefully support the parties in finding a resolution that fits their needs. And so being on your feet, being flexible, and having an open mind is incredibly important in facilitating a resolution.
And just to have like a some sort of a follow-up question to what you just mentioned about this flexibility, and can you maybe you can also add creativity to moving over those impasses? Like, were there any examples of this kind of flexible approach of yours that help you overcome an obstacle when you hit like a deadlock or something throughout the mediation process?
Of course. So the key to being creative in a mediation, I find, is fundamentally starting with really exploring the underlying interests of the parties and building rapport with the parties. So, one of the key strategies that I've used in the mediations that I've conducted is bracketing. So, bracketing helps address stagnation in mediations, which is something like a conditional offer that is proposed by the mediator or by one of the parties. So, for example, it goes something like this: would party A be willing to make a significant move on issue X if party B promises in return to make a significant move on issue Y? So there's a give and take there. And when you find that you're in stalemate between two parties, getting the ball rolling and getting the negotiation rolling and having some concessions made can really help in helping the parties come out of stagnation and hopefully getting closer to that resolution.
Hmm. And do you have any suggestions on how students could train their minds to kind of come to those kind of conclusions when they're mediating, when they face this issue? I know you talked about flexibility. I just wanted to know how could, because I believe there are some parts that could be planned, but there's so many aspects of it that you have to do that on the go and while you're there, while the two parties are looking at you. Do you have any some sort of like maybe trainings or anything that you feel like students could prepare themselves so when they face these situations, their mind could more likely than not think about these flexible approaches?
Absolutely. So this is oftentimes for me, bracketing starts actually even before the mediation starts. So when you're doing your pre-conference mediations, you get to really see the issues that matter to both parties. And in your mind, you can start looking at different possibilities and exploring different options, even before the mediation. So if you see a party, very, very stuck and inflexible in one issue, yet there is some leeway in another issue, and then the other party kind of has the opposite approach, you know that you can kind of find a middle ground. And so in interviewing the parties pre-mediation, you'll be able to find and hopefully find ways in which you can bring that middle ground together and do the bracketing appropriately. It is a strategy that takes a lot of practice. So if students maybe at the Osgoode Clinic have role plays that they do, I'm not sure if that's something
Yes, we do.
that is
Mhm.
provided. So in role plays, there are some easy ways that you can practice bracketing, and it's very low risk. And so when you are in that actual real mediation, utilizing bracketing in a real life scenario can be a lot easier. But the best way to set up the stage for bracketing is learning as much as you can and getting as much information as you can from the parties. So looking at positions, getting past positions into the fears of the party, the interests of the party, and really what motivates the party is really going to help you bracket the issues appropriately.
And as you mentioned, you will be able to do that through the pre-mediation talks that you have with parties. And this is kind of goes to emphasizing how important the preparation part is for mediations, because, most of our, like we do have, as you mentioned, is role plays, but they mostly focus on, okay, here's the two parties and now try to mediate this issue. Sometimes the importance of the preparation will be overlooked by these manuals or materials. So I was going to ask you how important you see, obviously you just mentioned it, but I want to know how important it is to be prepared in terms of going into the mediation.
Absolutely. If your mediation is one where mediation briefs are utilized, I would encourage that. That gives the mediator a really good foundational understanding of the integral issues at play. Reading that brief, making notes. If you have the opportunity to speak to the parties one-on-one, I highly recommend it. It allows you to build rapport. It also allows you to understand the temperaments, the personalities at play, which will hopefully help inform the way in which you actually go into the mediation and support the parties accordingly.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna switch gears a little bit. I'm gonna ask more about your subjective overview of your career as of now, until now, and obviously as a practicing mediator. Would you tell us what is your favorite aspect of mediation? Like for me, is just as you mentioned, I think the flexibility and the interpersonal aspect of mediation is what actually the beginning drew me to mediation itself. It's the fact that you are adding value through using your interpersonal skills, and which a part of it is the flexibility that you mentioned is so fascinating that I decided to obviously start with Osgoode Mediation Clinic and even consider, as I mentioned, we had this chat the other time, it's something that I actually consider about my career. So what would you say is your favorite aspect of mediation?
Of course. So I want to echo your points. That is exactly what piqued my interest in mediation. As you know, someone with a legal education, oftentimes lawyers, law students are bogged down in the really nitty gritty, bogged down by rules, applications, interpretations. What mediation has allowed me to do is get out of that, get out of the box. The box doesn't exist. You get to really look at the human needs of every party. And it's incredible what can be achieved through mediation. My favorite process or aspect is piecing together the parties' perspectives and exploring their underlying interests, fears, and needs, and supporting them into a resolution. But that can only really be done by asking those open questions and really getting down to the motivations. And that is oftentimes a big black box of the unknown, but getting to that point, getting to the granular of things is something that I really enjoy. And it allows me to really connect with people on a human to human basis. And I love that. And no mediation is similar to the last mediation I did. There's no two mediations that are similar. So it always keeps things fun. It always keeps things interesting. So
Oh, wow.
I'm very grateful to be doing this work.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Definitely, I feel like it's something for students to also reflect on once they're engaging these mediations to see what appeals to them more. And just to kind of flip to the other side of the coin, what would you say is one of the challenges that you face as a professional mediator? What is something that you find to be challenging in this profession?
It's funny because what I find most challenging about mediation is also what makes mediation such a great process. And that's fundamentally the uncertainty of the outcomes. As a mediator, you can have the best intentions in the world going into the mediation. You can be prepared, you can have your notes, you can have that pre-conference mediation. But at the end of the day, the outcome of the mediation is up to the parties to decide. And that's what makes mediation exciting as well, but it also makes it the most challenging. So over time, a way that I've learned to mitigate the uncertainty of mediation outcomes is to really hyper focus on the process and structure of the mediations that I lead, and ensuring that I create an environment where all parties feel safe and comfortable to voice their concerns.
Thank you so much. I'm sure that this will be a very useful video for future students. And kind of because I know this is supposed to be like a 20 to 25 minute kind of interview, I just want to ask you one final question, and that is if there are any educational resources that you would suggest students to engage with while they're completing their legal education, or even beyond that, once they're practicing and they're trying to kind of get their toes in with regards to mediation. Is there any programs or any material that you would suggest students to engage with? And if yes, I will definitely have them in the comments or description section of the video with links that I would definitely be useful for students.
For sure. So there are several resources. I'm sure your audience and yourself are aware of ADRIO, the ADR Institute of Ontario, as well as the ADR Institute of Canada. Both institutes provide continuing education, workshop, courses, and panels for students as well as practicing mediators. And ultimately, these resources are really great for young mediators wanting to dip their toes into mediation, but don't know where to start. There's also a really great organization. It's a nonprofit called the Diverse Dispute Resolution Institute of Canada that I am a member of, and that offers really important courses on intercultural communication and diversity for mediation professionals. And, by virtue of the work I do, I work in different organizations, helping with workplace mediations more specifically. So dealing with workplace bullying, conflict between managers, executives, HR professionals, and employees. And by the very fact that I service a very multicultural and interfaith background by the organizations I serve, it's really important to ensure that, I, as a mediator, am taking the necessary steps to be culturally sensitive and combat implicit biases. So there are really important courses that are offered by this nonprofit, but there's also really great courses that are offered by different institutions that can really help you kind of kickstart your career in mediation. And of course, I'm always open to discuss mediation and how to get engaged in mediation. Your viewers can contact me through LinkedIn at Dorna Zaboli, and I'm always happy to answer any questions.
Much that was going to be the next question, if you can have your contact information down and have students who are interested contact you. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your nice gesture, and I'm sure the students would greatly benefit with the opportunity to have a chat with you. So but again, thank you so much for doing this video with us, and
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you everyone for watching, and I really hope that you find our talk useful. And I'll obviously thanks to Dorna Zaboli for taking the time out of her busy schedule to have the chat with me. So yeah, please stay tuned for our upcoming episodes. Take care.